2026 is going to be an awesome year. We got some pretty cool stuff coming up. First off, we got Foundations of Recovery. This is our flagship program. We're starting it in January.
This is for anyone, man, woman, or couple who wants to come and reclaim their heart from shame, trauma, and betrayal. We start off with an education on all sorts of principles, give you the common language. We feed you from a fire hose in terms of all things recovery.
It is such a great start to recovery. And we get at the roots of things, Tyler. This isn't like any other program. Like, this is our healing journey in process, and Foundations is where we begin.
If you look at the value that you're getting there to kick off a good recovery with all of the right education, all of the right language, and a team to get you started while also being directed by Brandon and myself through the whole process, what a deal.
So if you're interested, if you're struggling, if you've been wanting to do something for a long time, jump into this. This only comes around every so often, and we would love to have you there.
Click the link in the description to sign up for it. And to make it even sweeter, we're also including a raffle for a free pass to the Radiant Dawn retreat. Anyone who signs up for Foundations will be added to the raffle for that free Radiant Dawn pass. If you're a man and you sign up for Foundations, your name still gets entered, and you can give that pass away if you win it to any woman that you want to.
So what you're saying, Tyler, is if you sign up and participate in Foundations, you could possibly go to Radiant Dawn for free?
That's exactly what I'm saying, which is crazy because Foundations by itself is already an insane value.
Man, I sound so salesy. But it actually is awesome. So come to Foundations. And even if you don't come to Foundations, sign up for Radiant Dawn. It's beyond therapy, the best healing experiences that you can have.
Click the link below and come join us. How do I navigate the process of divorce? Welcome to the Real Talk Recovery Podcast with the Therapy Brothers.
We're brothers, we're therapists, and we know recovery.
Bring your stories, your questions, your successes with real recovery.
Okay, Tyler, before we dive into that, I want to share an awesome review that we got. This is another one of those reviews that I just really value, where somebody is giving feedback to one of our guests and just talking about their experience as they listen to the show. So, and this says, wife's perspective. I just listened to your podcast with Dave and Janelle. My heart goes out to them. I do not, nor have I experienced this, but it is heartbreaking for both of them. I hear the struggle from each one's story. I commend them for their commitment to continue to work through this. However, what I heard without Janelle verbally stating was that she is just beat down by the disconnect. She sounds weary, and as a wife, I can't fault her. While Dave clearly has trauma to work through, I am left to ask, how long does a wife have to strive with a husband who cannot connect? Obviously, that's for her to answer. He is clearly capable. He has friends, but even with a massive amount of therapy, he cannot connect with her. It makes me sad for Janelle. She believes in him. We are designed to be connected to a person in this world, someone who we can be vulnerable and intimate with, not just friends and family. How do either one find fulfillment? I am just sad for this couple. I will be praying for both of them.
That's such a heartfelt, nice review, and there's so much truth in what's said there. It's a painful, hard situation. And if I remember that episode, that is a hard situation.
Well, Tyler, I think we could do an episode on this review because there's a lot of questions in it. But I remember when we finished recording that episode feeling similar. I know there's answers. I know there's answers to them doing their individual work. But yeah, just feeling that in 45 minutes when we talk to them isn't enough time, for her to really know that her pain is real and valid, and it's okay for her to be pushing to say, I want more out of this marriage. So I really appreciate that review because it just shows that the audience was empathizing and feeling with them as well. So
yeah, and I love your willingness to share the review too. That stuff matters. So thank you.
Yeah. Okay. We have
Kathryn.
We have a great guest here today, Kathryn. Kathryn, if you could just kind of fill us in and tell us where you're at today, and then just ask any questions that you have.
Yeah, so looking back at my calendar, I guess I met with you both back in April.
Yeah.
And at that point, I was waiting. And my husband actually found a sex addiction therapist that we went to. He actually runs a inpatient treatment center in Boulder, Begin Again Institute. And so he said to my husband that he was going to give him a month to see if he's serious, because he wanted to work with us, but he wanted to make sure that my husband was going to be all in. And so he said he wanted him to go to 3 12-step meetings a week and weekly counseling, and also sobriety for a month. And then he also said, or he could come into the inpatient and do the inpatient treatment. So I knew my husband wasn't going to do that. I knew he wasn't going to get to 3 12-step meetings. And I had very little confidence he would have any sobriety. And so he did not do what he was supposed to do, but he had these excuses about it and kind of like felt like he did enough and that should be good enough kind of thing, which is kind of his MO. Anyway, we went back to the counselor and he said, I can't work with you. And I don't recommend divorce to anyone. I've never have, but I'm recommending it to you guys.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, he's saying your husband is not going to work recovery.
He's not wanting to change right now.
Right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And so I continue to work with the same therapist. So I continued to work with him.
Sounds like a good therapist.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I would take one exception, that you don't necessarily take an addict and tell them to be sober in order to get therapy.
Yeah. But I do like how he's pushing him to kind of see the motivation.
If there's motivation. I like that there was the requirement for 3 meetings and to go to therapy. I just don't know that requiring an addict to be sober to get treatment is the right approach.
I agree.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So anyway, that's a side note.
Yeah. I can see that.
But what the whole process did, Kathryn, I do agree with you, Tyler, on that. What the whole process did was give you more clarity. You were already there. You were already knowing that your husband was not wanting recovery. So this therapist came in and pushed him hard and said, here's your chance. Boom, here's a chance.
Mm-hmm.
And he clearly did not pass the test.
Yeah.
Right. So it gave you that clear answer that you needed, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I went away in June alone to visit my sister and took all my journals from the last 3 years and went through a lot of them. And it was the same theme throughout. And I thought nothing's changed. I'm still writing in my journal what I wrote years ago, the same things.
How long are you going to be in this like this? Yeah.
The same manipulations and the same all that stuff. And I think those are the things that I'm having a hard time communicating, just communicating to anybody who's not experienced those kind of emotional abuse and that all the manipulation that comes with an addict. And, to our kids, that's kind of normal. They don't. And so how do I communicate my experience without it coming across? Because I had a very difficult conversation with my 27-year-old daughter last night, and she hung up on me. And she did eventually call back, but it was, she just feels like I'm very much pointing the finger at her dad, even though I told her all I said was, this is what I experienced in our marriage, was the fact that he was deceptive and lied and kept secrets, and that doesn't work in a marriage.
Yeah. Remind me how many kids you have, Kathryn?
3.
And they're all pretty connected to their dad?
The oldest is actually, none of us have contact with her right now. That's a long story, but she's an alcoholic and married to an abusive man and doesn't have custody of any of her kids. So that's kind of a long story. But
oh, wow.
Then our son. So I found out from our son's the middle one, and he texted me a few months ago and said that he feels like I'm judging him because he said I struggle with sexual sin as well. And so when you talk about, when I talk about their dad, he feels judged and he feels like I don't love him unconditionally. So there's that bind. And then my husband and him are like, my husband goes over to their house like every weekend, and just those 2 kids took my husband on vacation with them over the summer, and I wasn't invited and I wasn't included. And they went to our favorite place, the Tetons, and we used to go there as a family every year, camping for years. And so that was just a real painful, hurtful thing for me. And I'm just trying to come to the reality that, I'm just left out, and I'm kind of seen as I've said to my husband, who betrayed who? Because it seems like you're the victim and I'm the perpetrator.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And my youngest daughter, she's only been married a couple years, but they're really close to their dad in the fact that he's affectionate, and a very warm, affectionate person. So they feel his warmth, and he's like easy to be around because he doesn't really say anything to ruffle anybody.
I see. So he's a nice guy. He's a good man with a nasty addiction that gets in the way of a healthy relationship, which makes it really hard for the spouse and really confusing for the children, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of times this is really, really common, that it seems that the person who's experienced the betrayal ends up feeling like they're the one thrown under the bus because the people around them don't fully understand the full context of what's been happening behind the scenes. And what they see is like symptoms of the trauma, where there's the wave of emotions that's going on there. And there's these weird boundaries that are now being set for them because they don't know the backstory of everything. And then if you get a nice guy like that, that's willing to just kind of let that play out, then it makes the person who's been betrayed look like they're kind of like crazy, or, and it sounds like you're experiencing, at least from your end, it feels like you're experiencing some of that yourself. I just want to say before we go any further that your demeanor today is different than it was back in April. We're talking about hard things, and there's definitely some challenges we're going to talk about that it sounds like you're going through, but you seem a little bit more grounded. You seem a little bit more confident, even more matter of fact with the reality of your situation than you were back in April. Do you feel that way?
I do. I think I think there's been a shift just in the last month, maybe it was filing the papers and having an end to the hope of anything changing.
Mm-hmm. Kathryn, you were married how many years?
Well, in January, it'd be 42.
42 years.
Yeah.
And for how long was the lies and acting out and deception? And
the whole time. Okay. But I didn't find out till we were like 38 years in. So.
Okay. So for 4 years though, so And by the way, the symptoms of all of this was there long before you found out, right? And so I don't want to just say it was just 4 years. It was a long time that you stayed in, and you have fought for your marriage hard. 42 years of marriage.
38 of those years in the dark in a lot of ways.
Yeah. You have fought so hard for your family. And it really is unfair for you to be having this conversation with us, hearing you being accused of abandoning the family. It's so twisted on its head right now. I get why your kids love their dad. I understand that.
That's awesome. They do.
Yeah. But it's like an ultimate gaslight that's so like tricky, because if he's genuinely nice, then it's easy to side there, and it's easy to not really look at the consequences of the things that he's done in the marriage that are not okay. And from your children's perspective, it's easy to be like, love dad, we love him. Yeah, but you're not married to him where you need this kind of trust with him that I've never had, that I don't get in our marriage. Right? And me and Tyler see this all the time, right, Tyler?
All the time. And I think the challenge is that I see Kathryn like nodding her head. She's like, yeah, exactly. I think the question that it's coming down to, and Kathryn's already kind of asked this, but what it's coming down to is, how do I at least one of the questions is, how do I navigate this though in a way where I manage my relationships with my children in a way that's true and honest, but it's also still respectful of their dad. How do I navigate that? Because you're not going to change. He's likely not going to pay the consequences, so to speak, of his actions. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Your conversation with your daughter last night, Kathryn, here's the hard thing to do. And here's the answer to Tyler's question is, the more you cannot take personally how they feel and what they think, the better you're going to be able to navigate this. So you can have compassion for and empathy for your children's pain about their parents getting divorced. This sucks for them. They don't want to take sides. They don't want, and they're not being asked to, but they kind of are. And it sucks for them. And what you want to do is point blame and say, well, it's his fault. You got to understand he's done these things. I'm not doing these things to you. You know what matters, Kathryn, is between you and God what the truth is here. And if they look at this and they blame mom for a while, you can be honest with them about what the truth is in a very honest way, not in a vindictive, vengeful way. This is the truth, but I can see why this is hard. That's so difficult. What I'm saying is very difficult, right? But they're in a state of grief, so you got to allow them that process of grief, anger, denial, all those things, and some of that might be pointed at you.
That's one of the biggest challenges here is that Kathryn, you're in your own phases of grief over the fact that this change is happening in your life. And somehow you've got to honor that part of your story and be doing your grieving. And then you've got someone like your son calling you and saying, I don't feel like you love me because I've got sexual sin in my life too. And you're judging me because I've seen how you've judged dad. And it's like, man, I have to balance both of those things where how do I practice some self-compassion and grace for my own heart and allow myself to be in that process of bargaining or anger or depression or whatever else it is, and then take a phone call from my son, and Brandon's right about this, and not take it personal. Like this, even your son calling and saying those things wasn't even really about you. It was about the fact that he feels judged because he's got a sexual addiction, and you happen to be the landing space for that. And man, if I could somehow go, oh, my son's got issues, and how do I love him through his issues, instead of like, oh, pile that on top of me as well as everything else I'm trying to swim through right now. Like it's like, it just feels like it keeps layering itself on if you keep taking those things personally.
And your role as a mother is very different than as a wife. And so when your son is saying, I'm struggling with the sexual addiction, your boundaries are going to be much different with your son, and that you're going to be more of a support to help him, to be there for him. And for your husband, you're a support to help him, but also your husband breaks certain boundaries because there's fidelity involved in a marriage, that therefore you have to act in self-care in that relationship in different ways than with a son, right? And your son doesn't understand all of that. Your son's just saying, I have shame about my sexual addiction. Ouch, mom. Like, I'm taking this personally that you're angry at dad about this. And for you to not say, you know what, son, like, it's your dad's fault. You don't understand. But for you to stop and say, man, I can hear your pain. Talk to me about it. That's a hard thing to do.
Yeah. It sounds like you got some serious issues, son, and I love you. And yeah, I don't like the sexual sin, but I'm still going to love you.
Yeah. And I'm here for you.
Yeah. And that's what they have a 2-year-old. And so, and I said, you're going to, your son's going to do things that you don't like, his behavior, but you're still going to love him. I said, that's the same as you and me. I might not like some of the ways you treat me or some of the things you do, but I love you, but again, he is going with me to the sex addiction therapist, and we've only been, I don't know, 2 times. He had to cancel last week, but he's willing to go. And so I think there's hope there that
this is your son.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. Interesting that instead of my husband and I going, my son's going with me. So.
Yeah. But look at that support. Yeah. I mean, you're there supporting him, kind of helping him. That's awesome.
But, my daughter did say last night that it was hard for her. And, this is my reality too, is like to think of her dad in a different way. Cause she's like, then I don't really know who he is, cause you're kind of telling me he's somebody else, and I said, well, we all have different parts. We're not all good and we're not all bad. And, the part of him that's your dad is still that good part. That's your dad, and
your daughter at 27 is right in the stage of life where you start to become an adult and realize that mom and dad are humans that are screwed up. and really what I hear her saying to you, Kathryn, is, Mom, I'm trying to avoid an existential crisis here. So it's easier to kind of blame you and just take it out on you than to actually go through this crisis. And that's okay if that's where she's at. She'll go through it in her own time, and maybe be really angry at your husband for a while, and then come to some acceptance and peace and compassion. Who knows her process, right? But it's totally normal at 27. And if mom and dad are going through a divorce right now, for her to be right where she's at and the things that she was saying to you.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be really nice just to have space for everybody to be on the same page, to say, hey, we're all in our own weird grieving process with stuff we can't even put our finger on half the time because it's this ambiguous kind of loss that we're experiencing. But let's just offer each other some grace that today you might be in an angry state and I might be in a denial state, and tomorrow we might flip roles, and let's just allow each other the space to do the grieving and to do the changing that this new reality of our situation of a divorce is going to force upon us. Mm-hmm. And if there's just an acknowledgement that there's process for everybody involved, including your soon-to-be ex-husband, like this is just multiple processes of grieving that are going to be bumping into each other. And if there can at least be that understanding, there can be room for the process to then take place.
Yeah. I think our family tends not to talk about things, and, so everything's kind of just, hi, how you doing? Kind of, what do you got going on today? And,
yeah. But you are having conversations with the son who's able to air his grievances against you, and you can hear him and hold him, and he'll go to therapy with you. And you have a daughter who can hang up on you but call you back. And
those are few and far between, though.
Yeah, those are good signs, though, that there's communication that's happening in the right kinds of ways.
I guess, I did tell her this isn't what I wanted to happen, and And so I think just saying that made it look like I was blaming him, you know.
You know, when I counsel couples who are getting divorced, who have young children, and they ask, like, how do we tell the children? Some principles are in place. You know, the healthy thing for them to do is to sit down and say the truth. Mom and dad are getting divorced, and it's okay to be sad. It's okay to be angry. We're here for you to talk about your sadness and your anger. We still love you so much. We're still here for you. And it's okay to have all the feelings that you're having. Those same principles apply to your 27-year-old, right? It's okay. I'm the mom here. I still love you. Your dad's still in your life. And this is not what you expected. This is not how it's supposed to be. All those things. It's okay to feel all the feelings that you're feeling. And it's not your fault. And I'm here for you. Right. So that's kind of if you can have that attitude with her. But with the difference with the 27-year-old Kathryn is you can start to get into a little bit the reasons why.
Yes.
Right. The truth of, and not just bury that and hide that. Here's why, but it's okay for you to feel these things.
Yeah. And I think the challenge with what you're saying, Brandon, is that if, Kathryn, you're giving yourself space to kind of go through your own grieving process and come more and more to this place of acceptance as things are, that allows your heart to be at peace with the situation. And then when you have those conversations with your kids, it's not done in a blaming or dramatic or hard at war kind of a way. It's done more from a matter of fact kind of place, like, yeah, there were things in our relationship that hit my value system in a way that I couldn't tolerate. And these were the things, and this is what I had to choose to do. And it's okay that you feel the way that you do, but that's the reality. I'm not throwing your dad under the bus. I'm not like bitter and angry. I'm not trying to pick sides. This is just the reality of the situation as I see it. Right. That's different than, yeah, your dad's a total scumbag, so I had to leave him.
Well,
right?
I mean, I did say to her, I said, I have forgiven your dad and I will continue to forgive him. I said, I step into forgiveness every day. That's just a process you step into in an attitude you have toward that person of forgiving, even when it hurts and even when you're angry and feeling pain. But I said, reconciliation takes two. And that was the part that she didn't like and then she felt like I was judging her marriage. And I said, like, I don't know where that came from. Like, I was like, why? Like, this must be a theme in our family, right? You say one thing and they take it like like I always said, call us the blame family. It just seemed like everybody's blaming each other everywhere.
What's underneath that blame, though? Like, sounds like whatever you say, Kathryn, there's like hurt. There's something going on with her, right?
Yeah.
Sounds like you're judging my family. Sounds like you're doing this, Mom. You're mean to Dad. What's underneath that blame?
I don't know, fear.
Yeah, but even it is fear. Fear's always at the base of it. But in between that is sadness too.
Yeah.
Right.
Brene Brown says that blame is a way to discharge pain and shame without taking accountability.
Yeah.
That's she's in pain. She's in shame. She's in fear. You're hitting a raw nerve ending that you don't even know you're hitting, and it's like, okay, when she comes back with you at that kind of stuff, it's an insight into where she's at and where her pain lies.
But you could try to beat the drum of take accountability. This isn't my fault. Own your own stuff. You're a 27-year-old woman. Grow up. That's not gonna really help right now. She just has a lot of emotion that she needs to discharge. Now you need to have your boundaries. If she's calling you names or getting violent or anything like that, you're no. I have my boundaries so that I can be safe, so that I can hold some space for you and listen to your pain. So
my counselor was saying that, I mean, he really says adult children want to know how their parents' marriage failed. And he was really pushing me to communicate more about what I experienced. And I think, I don't know, I kind of feel like I don't know how to do that. Maybe I was trying to do that with her and it felt like it backfired. Although I think in the end it turned out okay when we finished our conversation.
I don't think the measuring stick is the reaction you get from your children or from your husband.
Yeah.
The measuring stick is whether or not you stayed living with integrity within yourself and the way that you say things. And I think where Brandon was going with this is with adult children, they do maybe want to know the details. And there's a way to share your experience and leave room for the both and of his experience. And you can put that back in the court and say, hey, this is just the way that I've seen it or experienced it. This is why I made the decisions that I did. But don't take, it's just like LeVar Burton on Reading Rainbow. Don't take my word for it. Like go talk with your dad if you want to hear his side of the story or hear what his reasons are for things. Like, I don't have to go and get into all of that. I'm giving you my experience, right? It's okay that there's both.
It's interesting, mom or dad during a divorce or one or the other could be a complete monster, like just the most horrible person ever. And a lot of times the children need mom or dad to be good because they're their mom or their dad. They want to look at them as that. And so they don't want, so if the other partner's coming and saying, here's the facts about like the things that they've done, they say, you're just making them out to be horrible, because what I don't want to look at is that they're actually done these horrible things. Kathryn, when I married my wife, it was a year removed from her parents getting divorced. And there's 5 kids in her family. And it's been fascinating to be on that. I've kind of been an observer on the side of the children here, right? And they've gone in all different directions. So when I married my wife was kind of hating on her mom and blaming her mom. And her 2 sisters were completely blaming dad. And her brother was just like disconnected from the family. And then the sisters have kind of shifted and now they see dad's side. And my wife really came to terms with things with her mom and got really close with her again. And so it's been this whole process for all of them to kind of navigate and come to peace within their own hearts. And her mom, when my wife was really mad at her mom, I remember her just kind of being like, it's okay for you to be mad at me. That's okay. And my wife hung on to that for a while. And because my mother-in-law was steady with loving my wife through that process, their relationship was salvaged. And I actually think it was strengthened because they went through something like that. But it wasn't a one-day thing that all of a sudden somebody said the right thing. And then it was a process of emotional, just emotions, working through emotions, right? So that's what you're in the midst of.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess, even, the podcast that you had with, Ashlyn and her husband. And then when I told my husband that, about it, he's like, well, then there's no hope for anybody.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how he felt. But
if everyone's marriage is hanging on Ashlyn and Kobe's staying together, then we're all screwed.
We're in trouble.
Yeah. So.
Well, I think it looked like, they were doing such good work.
Right.
And I think to my husband, it was like, wow, I thought he was really
right
in recovery and that,
right.
And so I guess, even about, like my daughter asked, because I'm in the house and she's like, are you going to stay in the house? And I said, yeah, for a while. And, my husband rents a room from a guy and he tells everybody how awful it is, that it's so dirty, this house he lives in. I've never been inside, but he can act like, oh, I can't wash my clothes at the house because it's just so dirty in there and I can't cook in there and I can't, so he's this victim of where he lives. And so, my daughter asking me, well, you're going to stay in the house and what, is he just going to continue to rent that crappy room? See, he's going to even continue to give me things that make him look like, look at, I'm doing all this for her and look at poor me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still driving these junker cars and living in this crappy room and, I have to keep working this hard job because I have to pay her money every month.
Mm-hmm. And that's probably the spot where he'll try to stay.
Yeah.
And he has for a long time, right? And you can't force him to change. I mean, is he going to call your kids up and take accountability for all of the issues that they haven't seen in the marriage? Probably not. Right?
I think the challenge here is that you don't get sucked into that where you're taking on that, where you've got somebody who's made choices, even making choices to live in that room, to drive that car, to do that job. And now he's saying how hard it is for him. And now you've got people coming to you and saying, hey, Mom, fix it.
Yeah.
What do you do with that?
Mm-hmm.
You go, yeah, he's a grown man. He can make his own choices. I don't have to take ownership for that. He sounds like he's in some pain and he's going to have to do what's right for him to make some choices. I'm not taking that on. That's not mine to take on anymore. That's one of the reasons why I'm getting out. I'd rather be with a man who can own his own decisions and make his own choices for the greater good of whatever he's trying to become, rather than sit here and wait for Mom to have to take the brunt for his choices.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I'm not going to do that anymore.
I think there's just a general attitude in the family of almost taking care of him. He doesn't have much confidence and he has a lot of shame, so we better help him, but again, it's like, I feel like, oh, well, maybe I should sell the house and I should go live somewhere really crappy too, so I look as bad as he does.
If you guys want to have a race to the bottom and see who can be the most miserable, that sounds like a good plan.
People do that. People actually do it.
But again, I don't, I am just trying to move on. And, when we went to the courthouse last week to turn in the papers, we had to, I'm the one who got the whole agreement drawn up, and I pretty much did all the work for it all. And he just needed to sign the papers. And I told him, I said, this isn't really where I wanted to be. And I'm really sad. And he said, we can't even sit down for 5 minutes. And it comes back to what a screw up I am. And I said, what? I said, I've waited 4 years for you. I have worked really hard. I have given you resources. I have tried to invite you into recovery, and I listed all the things. And I said, and I don't think you've ever even thanked me. Have you even seen what I've been through and what I've endured for you? And you're just focused on your poor little self, poor Paul, and it kind of startled him, and he kind of just didn't say anything. And oh, yeah. I said, most women would not have waited that long, maybe given you a year, but and so, but again, he's going to go to that place of shame and, choosing his shame and his addiction over me in the marriage, and, having to deal with my own rejection, I guess, of his choices. And just realizing that pain came into my life through him, but it could have come in a different way, right? We all experience pain, but he was the avenue. This pain came in for me to grow and change and learn and, become a better human, but it could have come a different way.
Kathryn, it's interesting what's kind of presented to somebody a lot of times, especially somebody who's been married for a while, is, will you please caretake for your partner and your spouse and sacrifice yourself so that the family can be kept together? And a lot of partners really do give themselves up.
Mhm.
They live in a lot of just depression and resentment and isolation, loneliness, all those things. And they smile and they pretend like everything's okay. And you're a living, breathing testament of somebody at your age, no matter what, to say, you know what, like I have to live in my truth. And the only way that you actually will feel real peace in your life and joy is to step into that truth. And so you got to go through the heart of all this stuff going on right now and the pain of all this stuff right now. And it already feels like you're starting to feel some of that, Kathryn, and move into that. So way to practice the courage to step through the pain to find that peace.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kathryn, I'm not sure we've even gotten to any of your questions today. We're just about out of time. What are you experiencing emotionally? And is there any other thoughts or questions on your heart today?
Well, was it that there was something and it kind of I lost it, but I think just what I heard a quote recently, and it was, any plan that's based on someone else changing is a bad plan, and so that was kind of my plan for 4 years, right? Was him changing. That plan didn't work, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't change. So, and I think, this was a good illustration from my therapist was, of course, we talked last time about the whole date rape and how the marriage started. And he said, you fell into this hole. And in the middle of the hole, all this stuff happened. That was your marriage, Now you've gotten up on the other side of that hole. And we need to have that Kathryn over here, find the one over here. And we got to bring those two together. And that's what I'm working on. But also he said, your marriage is, it's easy to, like, in grief, trying to make sense of things and trying to what was what for 40 some years, right? And he said it's like this tangled up strands of Christmas lights, like you're trying to untangle all these strands of lights, and maybe it won't ever be untangled, and but there's this is so multifaceted, with our brains and how our brains are trying to find safety and make sense of things. And but my journey is going to keep moving on, and I'm thankful for it. And so I hope some of this might help some listeners to know that, like you said, it's a process with the children and with myself, and to give it time and compassion and let people feel their feelings.
Yeah. What I love about what you just said, Kathryn, is that this principle of when you decide to make a plan on your life based off of your life instead of waiting for someone else to change, it comes with consequence. That change comes with consequence, but you can hear it in your voice compared to the last time we had you on the show, that there is a sense of power and confidence and willingness to go through the struggle when you're making the choices based off of your life and your values instead of waiting for someone else to change. You're no longer a victim. You are empowered. It doesn't take away the fact that there's the pain you're in, the struggles you're in, the grieving you're going through, these new changes in relationships, and the gifts that your children are being given by having to take a look at the reality of life that they don't necessarily want to see yet. And all of that struggle is coming as a result of your choice to live your life. And you're willing to own all the challenges that come with it, because it's a better life living that way than it is in denial, waiting for someone else to change. And you can hear it in your voice.
The old Kathryn was willing to let other people dictate her truth to her, to tell her this is what you should do, this is the right thing to do, this is, and the new you, Kathryn, sitting here today, despite what your kids are saying or what other people might think, you're tapping into your intuition, to your gut, to your truth, and you're stepping into that truth, and you're letting the chaos ensue around you. And that's okay. You just step into that again and again. And I love to see how empowered you're getting. And I do believe you're making good decisions and moving forward. And so it's hard. It's tumultuous. That strand might never get unwound, but you know what? You might end up putting that strand to the side and finding LEDs, like a better strand anyways. So
yeah.
Well, and what came to my mind right now when you're talking is redemption. And I think, I wanted the redemption to come through the marriage, but it's coming a different way.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Oh, I love that there's still redemption possible, because there always is. There's always a possibility for redemption.
Mm-hmm.
So, Kathryn, thank you. Thank you for your willingness to give us some snapshots of your lives. I'm hoping that our listeners will go back and listen to that episode in April and kind of see the difference in the work that you've been doing. And I would just encourage you to continue to take the steps forward that you are. You're on solid ground. You've got your feet planted in the right place. You've got your head on straight. I know it's a challenge. I hope you're continuing to get support, but thank you for your willingness to share yourself.
Yeah. And I keep listening to you guys, even though I'm not dealing with sex addiction per se with my husband, but I guess with my son, I don't know. But I appreciate your work and your compassion and understanding and insight to
awesome
in all of this.
Thanks, Kathryn. And I just want to say, if anybody's listening and they're relating to Kathryn, then shout out to her, give us a review and let us know how you're feeling about her story and her courage to come on. So, all right, you guys, have a good one. We'll see you later.
Thank you.